Hello students, greetings to you all. Hope you are all safe and fine and welcome back to the physics class. You didn't have classes last week because of the confusion we had regarding your examination. Now that your exams are cancelled, I'm sure you're all very happy, but make sure you to use that excitement and happiness to learn your 12th standard subjects. Kindly make use of the videos that you receive and the resources that are available online. So make sure that you use your time well in a right way. So we have been discussing chapter 5 for the past two sessions. And here again, we are going to continue with chapter 5. So far, we learned about electromagnetic waves, their properties, their sources, experiments, and then we learned about electromagnetic spectrum, emission spectrum, absorption spectrum, Fraunhofer line, blackbody radiation, and on. And this would be the last session for 5th chapter. And in this, we will be discussing about the mathematical part and the derivation. So what are we going to learn now is the displacement current and Maxwell's correction to Ampere's circuital law and Maxwell's equation in integral form. In order to understand the first part, displacement current and Maxwell's correction to Ampere's circuital law, we need to be clear with certain terms. So now we would be discussing each of these topics one after the other. So we would get into Faraday's equation first. So what is Faraday's equation? What does Faraday say? In Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, he says that change in magnetic field can produce electric field. How can a magnetic field can produce electric field? We need a battery or we need a power supply to produce electric field. But how come just a magnet can produce it? As you can see in the animation nearby, there is a wire and that wire is connected to a voltmeter and you are able to see the fluctuation, the needle moving in the voltmeter. Whenever there is a movement in the needle of voltmeter, it shows that there is a potential difference. There is a flow of current in the wire. But as you can see, that wire is not connected to any battery or power supply. So what actually is the reason behind the generation of this or the production of the electric field? The answer is also right there in that picture. It's because of the movement in the because of the movement of the magnet. How come a movement of a magnet produces electric field? In order to understand that, we need to learn another term. It's called as magnetic flux. What is magnetic flux? Magnetic flux is a measurement of the total magnetic field which passes through a given area. That means there are 46 children in a classroom. I'm choosing one single bench and I'm going to see how many students are there in that single bench, which means there is a huge area. I'm choosing a particular area and I want to see the number of students in that particular area. Similarly, imagine the magnetic flux. It is a measure of total magnetic field in a certain area. Look here, you have a picture of a magnet here. And what we see here are the magnetic field lines. I'm going to choose a certain area. And I want to know the magnetic field that passes through this area. And that is what we call it as magnetic flux. We are narrowing it down. You are choosing an area and you want to know the magnetic field only in that area and you are not bothered about the field outside the particular area. So magnetic flux is the measure of the total magnetic field which passes through a given area and you get to choose the area based on your need and want. Knowing what is magnetic flux, we'll move on to Faraday's law. Change in magnetic flux produces electric field. So how is this magnetic flux varying? You can see there is a magnet. Initially it is in position AB and next it goes to position CD. I'm talking about the animation that you're able to see in your left. When it is in the position AD and when it is in the AB and CD, just notice how many blue lines, that is the magnetic field lines, are passing through that wire, the coil, the black circular lines. When it is at AB, hardly 2 lines are passing through the coil. When it is at CD, more than 5 lines are passing through the coil. As you know, magnetic flux is nothing but the measure of total magnetic field passing through the given area. So when it is at AB, the magnetic field through the coil is different, and when it is at CD, the magnetic field through the coil is different. From when the magnet is at AB, the magnetic field the magnetic field line passing through the coil is very less. So very less number of lines are passing through the coil. But when it moves to CD, more number of lines are passing through the coil. So when it goes to CD, more number of lines are passing through the coil. So this number of lines that are passing through the coil keeps on changing, which means the magnetic flux keeps on changing. At AB, the magnetic field in the coil is very less. At CD, the magnetic field lines that are crossing through the coil is more. So less, more, less, more. When the magnet keeps on moving, there is a continuous fluctuation in the magnetic flux. This continuous fluctuation is what produces the electric field. So of course you can generate electric field without a battery, but you need a powerful magnet, and that magnet should keep on moving, and this movement will change the magnetic flux, and this change in magnetic flux will produce the electric field. So how do we denote this magnetic flux? Magnetic flux is denoted by phi. And what is responsible for this magnetic flux? It is the magnetic field of the magnet and the area perpendicular to the magnetic field. So phi is equal to B dot A, B into A, where B is the magnetic field and A is the area perpendicular to the magnetic field. Now, knowing that magnetic flux is phi B and change in magnetic flux produces the electric field. Now, this phi B is the magnetic flux and dou by dou T is the partial derivative with respect to time. So as you can see, we know d by dt, but now we are using dou by dou T and we call this as the partial derivative. I'm sorry, it's not partial integral, it's the partial derivative. What is so special about partial derivative? In a partial derivative, we have two quantities, and out of these two quantities, one varies and the other one is a constant. It does not change at all. So here, this partial derivative of the magnetic flux gives us the electric field. So as you know, whenever we use the differentiation, change in something is what we call it as differentiation, right? So when there's a change in velocity, it results in acceleration. So when there's a change in magnetic flux, it produces electric field. So this electric field is produced because of the change in the magnetic flux. But earlier we learned that phi is equal to BA. So phi is equal to BA. So I can write it as phi B is equal to integral of B vector dot ds vector, where S and A denotes area. So you can either write B vector dot dA vector, or you can also write B vector dot ds vector. But in your book, it's given as ds vector. So dou by dou T of phi B is equal to surface integral of E vector dot dl vector, where phi B is equal to integral of B vector dot ds vector. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to place this over here. So I'm going to just write this over here instead of this phi B. So what will happen to the equation? Dou by dou T surface integral B dot ds is equal to integral E vector dot dl vector. That is, the change in magnetic flux produces the electric field. And we have a negative sign here because it denotes the change in the it denotes the direction of flow of current. So we'll not consider that now. We'll just stick on to the equation. So according to Faraday's equation, electric field is produced because of the change in this electric field is produced due to the change in the magnetic flux. And this change in magnetic flux happens in a region enclosed by the loop. Okay? So just remember this well. This is Faraday's equation. So this Faraday's equation shows that the change in flux in a region enclosed by a loop gives rise to the electric field induced along the closed loop. So now this is Faraday's equation. Now what does this have to do with displacement current and Maxwell's correction to Ampere's circuital law? Looking into Faraday's equation, James Clerk Maxwell, he thought that when water can turn into ice, ice should also can be turned into water. So the reverse procedure is always possible when it comes to physics. So when the change in magnetic field can produce an electric field, the change in electric field should also produce magnetic field, said James Clerk Maxwell. And this is what you call it as Maxwell's theory. And he tried to prove it. He proved it through certain experiments that the change in electric field produces magnetic field, and he ended up with his law or his equation. And this equation is the result of Maxwell's law of induction. See here, children, the above one, this is Faraday's, and this one is Maxwell's. So as you can see, Maxwell's law of induction is just the inverse of Faraday's. Here, as you can see, this phi b is magnetic flux. Here it is electric flux. And this change in electric flux in a closed region produces the magnetic field along a closed loop. You can see that it is just the inverse, exactly the inverse of Faraday's law of equation or Faraday's equation. So, after coming out with the equation, Maxwell wanted to explain his law, and he wanted to explain his theory. And in order to understand how the changing electric field produces magnetic field, he considered a situation of charging a parallel plate capacitor. So Maxwell took this charging of parallel plate capacitor as an experiment to understand this concept better. So in order to understand that, you have to know what a parallel plate capacitor is. You take two parallel plates, and these plates should be made of metals, something that is a good conductor. And these two parallel plates, which are made out of conductors, are connected across a battery. So you have two conductors, and you're connecting it to a battery. What will happen eventually? There will be a flow of charge. So what actually will happen here is, that's very interesting. Both these parallel plates, this plate and this plate, if you consider this as plate A and this as plate B, they will get loaded with charges. One side with a negative charge and the other side with a positive charge. How long will they get loaded? Unless and until they both are equally charged. If you have 1000 negative charges here, this side you will have 1000 positive charges. And it is totally irrespective of the shape of the conductor or shape of the plate. You are just taking two parallel plates. You can take it in any shape, and you are connecting it to a battery. There is a flow of charge, And this flow of charge makes one side or one plate to be positively charged and the other plate to be negatively charged. And this is a continuous process. This process will stop once they are equally charged. So what is he trying to tell with this parallel plate capacitor? Considering a situation of parallel plate capacitor, assume that the medium in between the capacitor plate is a non-conducting medium. For example, let's consider here this and these are two plates in a capacitor. They are kept parallel to each other, and in between these two plates, we are going to consider that it is a non-conducting medium. So there is no flow of charge or there is no current between the parallel plates. The electric field passing through the wire. So this wire, the current or the field that is passing through the wire, you will call it as a conducting current. This current generates a magnetic field around the wire. That means the current flows in this direction. As the current flows, what happens? Magnetic field is generated around the wire. So magnetic field is generated here. Magnetic field is generated here. So all over the wire, wherever there is a flow of conducting current, there is magnetic field generated. So I'm telling you magnetic field is, for example, I say that I'm going to give you some money. So what would be the question that you would be asking me? How much? How much money are you going to hand over me? How much money are you going to give me? So I say that magnetic field is generated. Now we need to calculate the strength of that magnetic field. So in order to calculate the strength of the magnetic field, there comes the law called as Ampere's circuited law. And understand that this magnetic field is the result of the flow of the conducting current. When I'm stressing something so much, conducting current, something else is there in the future for you to understand. So it is the conducting current that is passing through the wire that is responsible for the magnetic field that is generated around the wire. And the strength of this magnetic field is computed with or calculated with the help of Ampere's circuited law. So what does it say? Ampere's circuited law states that the line integral of the magnetic field around any closed loop is equal to mu times the net current threading through the area closed by the loop. So this may sound pretty difficult, but when you look into the equation and understand, it's very easy to understand. See here. What is this? The line integral. The line integral of the resultant magnetic field along the closed plane curve is equal to mu times the total current crossing the area. Okay. So what does it say? It says that the line integral of the magnetic field B vector is equal to mu times the net current. So integral B vector dot dl vector is equal to mu naught times I. And this I is what you call it as the current that is threading through the area enclosed by the loop, or the current that is passing through the area enclosed by the loop. There is one drawback in Ampere's circuited law. That is, this is only true for steady current. As we saw earlier, this person Maxwell is very much interested in finding the reverse process and in debugging the errors. Debugging errors is removing the flaws, mistakes. Maxwell found that there is some mistake in Ampere's law. That mistake is nothing but it is true only for the steady current. What will happen if there is an unsteady current? Unsteady current is there's a fluctuation in current. So if there is a fluctuation in current, Ampere's circuital law does not hold good. It fails. So he wants to correct it. He wants to modify the Ampere's law to include time varying electric field. Time varying electric field is nothing but fluctuating electric field. So we know that this magnetic field is found outside the parallel plate capacitor. What is there inside the between the parallel plate capacitor? There is no conduction of charges between the parallel plate capacitor, but what actually exists there is what is more interesting. According to Maxwell, between the plates of the capacitor, there is an electric field which is directed from the positive plate to the negative plate. Why did he feel it that way? Because he found that something is wrong with Ampere's circuital law. So to correct it, he assumed that there has to be some current existing between the plates of the capacitor. Outside the capacitor, current was due to the flow of electrons. There is no conduction of charges between the plate of the capacitor. But according to Maxwell, between the plates of the capacitor, there is an electric field, and this electric field is directed from the positive plate to negative plate. He started it with an assumption to correct Ampere's circuital law. Okay, when I say there is an electric field, what would be the strength of the electric field between the plates of the parallel plate capacitor? The magnitude of the electric field would be E is equal to V by D, where V will consider as the potential difference between the plates and D is the distance between the plates. So if you increase the distance between the plates, what happens? The electric field decreases. If you decrease the distance between the plates, the electric field increases. So the current was generated because of the electric flux with time. So whatever he assumed happens to be right now. The direction of the electric field is perpendicular to the selected surface area, which means whatever the plate that you use. In this case, we are considering it as the positive plate, so it goes from positive to negative plate. So there is an electric flux. So what is the reason for this electric flux? As we saw in the first, see here, what happens here? Initially, there is a combination of positive and negative charges on both the plates. And as there is a continuous flow of charge happens, what happens? The number of negative charges decreases and the positive charges increases in the left plate, and the number of positive charges decreases and the number of negative charges increases in the right plate, right? See, this side everything becomes positive and that side everything becomes negative. See, if this is the initial status, but what happens as there is a flow of charge happens, when the charge starts to flow, what happens? There is a change in number of charges here and there is a change in number of charges here. We know that this is the reason behind the change in electric flux. So how long will this happen? Until there is an equal number of positive charges on the left plate and the negative charges in the right plate. So there's a continuous change in the number of charges in the positive plate and the negative plate, and this we call it as the change in electric flux. So it is because of that what happens, the electric flux arose, and this creates a current between them, and this current is what we call it as displacement current. Earlier we discussed about conducting current. This conducting current is responsible for the magnetic field produced outside the parallel plate capacitor. And initially we assumed that there is no electric field between the parallel plates. But in order to correct the mistakes in Ampere's circuital law, Maxwell assumed that there is a electric field between the parallel plates, and this could be because of the change in the electric flux. And this current, we will call it as the displacement current. Therefore, therefore, change in electric field gave rise to a displacement current. In order to calculate the magnetic field at a point P near the wire, as shown in the picture, they've drawn a circular loop. That loop you call it as an Amperian loop, and inside that Amperian loop you have the current carrying wire. This Amperian loop encloses a surface area S1, okay, certain area S1. Therefore, using the Ampere circuital law, I can write that integral B dot dl is equal to mu naught IT, where in this case I can write it as IC, because this magnetic field is because of the conducting current that is flowing through the wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose another region. Initially I chose an empirical region. This Amperian loop is a circular loop. Now I'm going to choose a hollow hemisphere. So when I say hollow hemisphere, imagine a ball, a rubber ball or a plastic ball, cut it into two halves. So you're taking one half and you're keeping that one half here. So what happens? Nothing is touching this current carrying wire. So this current carrying wire is untouched. And this ball, one surface of the ball is between the parallel plates of our capacitor. So here we can write the Ampere circuital law again. So how do we write? In the initial case, B dot dl is equal to mu naught IC. But here, for the surface S2, integral B dot dl is equal to 0. The right hand side of the equation is 0 because the surface S2 nowhere touches the wire carrying conduction current, and further there is no current in between the plates of the capacitor. So the magnetic field at a point P is 0 in surface S2. Hence there is an inconsistency between this equation and this equation. Maxwell wanted to correct this inconsistency. So he resolved it. Due to external source, the capacitor is getting charged up. Because of the current flowing through the capacitor, it produces an increasing electric field between the capacitor plates. So there must be current associated with the changing electric field in between the capacitor plates. Or in other words, I can say that time varying electric flux existing between the plates of the capacitor. And this is what we call it as, or this produces a current known as the displacement current. Okay, so I guess you are clear with this. What happens here is we are choosing S1 and we are choosing S2. The right hand side is not same for both the equation, and that's not right. So Maxwell came out with an explanation that there is an electric field between the capacitor or between the plates of the capacitor, and this electric field is a time varying electric flux, and this time varying electric flux existing between the plates of the capacitor produces a current, and this current is known as the displacement current. Now, as most of you are learning in chapter 1, you are familiar with Gauss law. For the others, just understand it, and we will be learning more about it when we go to lesson 1. So Gauss law says phi E is equal to integral E vector dot dA vector and is equal to Q by epsilon naught, where Q is charge and epsilon naught is the permeability of free space and it is a constant. So change in electric flux. So what is change in electric flux? Whenever we say there is a change, we consider a derivative. So I'm going to put d by dt of phi E. What is phi E? Phi E is equal to Q by epsilon naught. Epsilon naught is a constant. So I'm taking it as 1 by epsilon naught. I'm only derivating Q. It becomes dQ by dt. So I have an equation here. And what we know is dQ by dt is equal to id. What is dQ by dt? Q by T. What is Q by T? The number of charges flowing through a certain area in a particular period of time is what we call it as current. So Q by T is current. So dQ by dt is what we are going to call as our displacement current. So this dQ by dt, I can write it as id. So my equation becomes 1 by epsilon naught into id, or I can write as id by epsilon naught. But what we are concerned about is id. So I'm taking this to the other side. So it becomes epsilon naught into d phi E by dt. So now we have an expression for our displacement current from Gauss law. So initially what did Ampere say? He said that B dot dl is equal to mu naught times the current, net current. But Maxwell said it is not just net current, it is conducting current and displacement current. Initially, according to Ampere's law, it is only the conducting current, but Maxwell included the displacement current to his equation, and now Ampere's circuital law is complete. There is no flaw in it. Ampere's circuital law holds good for steady current and for time varying current or time varying electric field. So this net current I is a sum of conducting current and the displacement current. So what we need to know is there are chances where the net current can be wholly conducting current or the net current can be wholly displacement current, but I is never zero. So I can be IC plus ID, or I can be IC, or I can be ID. I will never be zero in this case. Okay, now moving on to Maxwell's equation in integral form. So Maxwell's equation in integral form is a way to define certain things. Here, the electromagnetism can be summarized into 4 basic equations. So the entire concept of electrodynamics can be summarized. And these are called as the Maxwell's equation. And this equation gives us the relation between the electric and magnetic field. So these are the 4 equations. The first equation is nothing but Gauss law. And this Gauss law, it relates the net electric flux to the net electric charge enclosed in the surface. And the next one is a no-name equation. It is not actually a no-name equation. Later on they gave, it is also called as Gauss law in magnetism. As you can see, the first equation and second equation, it is E dot dA, here it is B dot dA. There it is about electric flux, here it is about magnetic flux. So it can also be called as Gauss law in magnetism. This third equation is nothing but Faraday's law. So what does this say is, this law relates electric field with a changing magnetic flux mathematically. What is Faraday's law? Change in magnetic field can produce electric field. So you see the right hand side, change in magnetic field, and see the left hand side, it is the electric field. And the fourth law is what we learned so far. The fourth equation is the modified Ampere circuital law. It is now known as Ampere-Maxwell's law. It relates the magnetic field around any closed path to a conducting current and displacement current through the path. So it is nothing but the correction that Maxwell did in Ampere circuital law. So these are the four important equations, and this is one important question in this chapter. You can definitely expect one long answer from chapter 5. It's a very small one, but it's a very important lesson. So make sure that you go through the videos again and again and try to understand the concept, and kindly ask me if there is any doubt. So these four equations ensures the existence of electromagnetic waves. And as we know, this electromagnetic wave is the base or foundation for the communication system that we have in the world. So children, that is all with electromagnetic waves chapter. We've completed chapter 5. I know most of you have your books with you, or some of you are learning with PDF. So kindly go through the question answers. Try to understand and answer them. So I want everyone, each one of you, to respond through the WhatsApp group that you have listened and you understood, and if you have any doubt, kindly ask. And once I receive all your response, I'm going to upload the study material for the 5th chapter, and you're going to start studying lesson 5. Okay, thank you children. Once again, don't waste your time. Use it well. All the best.